The house felt wrong. Not in the usual way. No, not the creaks of the floorboards or the occasional gust of wind that made the curtains sway. This was different. It was the kind of silence that wraps around you like a heavy blanket, suffocating and inescapable. For months, it had been building up, but today, it hit me full force. I stepped inside, dropped my keys on the table, and looked around. The only light in the room came from the dim glow of the kitchen, where the microwave hummed quietly. Leah, my wife of 5 years, wasn't home, and she hadn't texted me. Not that it was out of the ordinary. She had always been the more spontaneous one. But tonight, the absence of her presence felt like something more. I had always believed that nothing was truly hidden. People could only fake things for so long before their true selves started to bleed through the cracks. Maybe I had been living in denial, but today, I couldn't ignore the gut feeling in my stomach. It had been weeks of subtle changes, tiny shifts in routine, little things that didn't seem like much on their own, but when strung together, they began to form a picture I wasn't ready to see. It started with the way Lee's routine had changed. She used to come home at the same time every day, around 6, greet me with a tired smile, and we'd talk about our day over dinner. But lately, she'd been late. Sometimes it was work, sometimes it was errands, and sometimes she would just come home saying she'd been at a meeting with her colleagues. I told myself I was being paranoid. We were both busy. It wasn't unusual for work to spill over into the evening. But there was something about the way she'd hurry past me after getting home, like she had somewhere else to be. She never seemed to notice that I was watching her more closely these days. Today, as I stood in the kitchen, the cold silence pressing on me, I realized something. I couldn't recall the last time we had a conversation that wasn't about bills or grocery lists or what to watch on TV. The deeper, meaningful conversations that used to come so naturally between us were gone, replaced by empty words that barely scratched the surface. I tried to shake it off, but it was hard. I had spent so many months in this house, sharing space with someone who felt more like a stranger than a wife. It wasn't a sudden change. It had been creeping up slowly, almost imperceptibly, until one day, it hit me. The woman I had married, the woman I thought I knew, was slipping away. I decided to go for a walk. Maybe some fresh air would help clear my head. The streets were quiet, the air crisp, the kind of cold that made your lungs feel alive. But as I walked, my mind couldn't stop racing. Every small change, every glance that wasn't quite right, every time she avoided my touch, kept replaying in my head. Was I losing my mind? Or was something deeper going on? As I walked through the neighborhood, I couldn't shake the image of Lee's distracted expression when I asked her about her day. It was always the same. The answer was too vague, too rehearsed. She'd say something like, "Nothing special, just work stuff," and move on. But I had learned long ago that people who say nothing special usually mean everything is wrong. I returned home, trying to shake off the cold feeling that had settled in my chest. I didn't expect Leah to be back yet, but I went inside anyway. My eyes scanned the room, the same room I had lived in for years, and yet, it felt foreign now. I wasn't sure when I first started feeling the distance between us. It had probably been gradual, but tonight, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I wasn't just living with her anymore. I was living with someone who had built walls around herself, someone who seemed to be miles away, even when she was in the same room. I glanced at the clock. It was nearly 8 o'clock. Normally, Leah would have been home by now. My mind started to wander again. Where was she? I tried calling, but it went straight to voicemail. I left a quick message, just a casual one, telling her to let me know when she'd be home. No response. Maybe I was being paranoid. But then again, maybe I wasn't. I could feel it, like a nagging voice in the back of my head, urging me to do something. I had no idea what that something was, but I knew I couldn't just sit here anymore. I decided to wait. Maybe she'd text me back. Maybe she was caught up in something and would explain later. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. Something had shifted, something I couldn't explain. It was like she was already halfway out the door, and I was just too blind to see it. The thought made my stomach twist in knots. I waited for what felt like hours, but in reality, it was only about 30 minutes. Then, finally, I heard the sound of the door unlocking. I stood up, my heart pounding in my chest, unsure of what I was going to say or do. The door creaked open, and Leah walked in, her coat still on, her face hidden behind her hair. She didn't say a word at first. I stood there, frozen, waiting for something, anything, to break the silence. but she just walked past me, almost like I wasn't even there. And that's when I knew. I had to find out what was really going on. I had to see for myself what had been happening behind my back. I stood there, watching her walk past me as though I was invisible. My heart raced, the sudden rush of emotions overwhelming me. I wanted to say something, anything, to stop her, to get her to look me in the eye and acknowledge me. But the words wouldn't come. It was like I was paralyzed, rooted to the floor. Leah didn't even glance my way as she made her way to the kitchen, shrugging off her coat and tossing it onto a chair. She went to the fridge, pulled out a bottle of water, and opened it with a quiet click. The mundane actions felt like a slap in the face. She was so calm, so unaffected by the fact that I had been sitting here, waiting, wondering where she was, why she was late. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I found my voice. "Leah, where have you been?" I asked, my voice coming out a little shakier than I intended. I hated how vulnerable I sounded, but I couldn't help it. Something was wrong, and I needed answers. She paused, her back still to me, before taking a slow sip of her water. "Just out with some friends," she replied, her tone too casual, too rehearsed. "Why?" I clenched my fists, trying to suppress the frustration bubbling up inside me. Friends? She had never once mentioned going out with anyone tonight. But it wasn't just the lie that bothered me. It was how easily she said it. Like she was brushing off the concern I'd been carrying around for days. Something about her distance, her detachment, made the lie even harder to stomach. I took a step forward, my eyes narrowing. "You've been acting strange lately," I said, my voice more forceful now. "I can't even remember the last time we had a real conversation, Leah. And tonight you're just out with friends?" She turned to face me then, her eyes not quite meeting mine. She shrugged, a faint smile on her lips. "It's nothing. Just needed some time away from the house, that's all." But it wasn't nothing. I could feel it, deep in my gut. There was something she wasn't telling me, something more than just a simple night out. It felt like a wall had been built between us, and I was only now realizing how thick it had become. I opened my mouth to argue, to ask more questions, but before I could, she held up a hand. "I'm tired, Julian. Can we talk about this tomorrow?" Her words hit me like a punch to the chest. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to demand the truth. But she was already walking away, disappearing down the hallway to the bedroom, her footsteps heavy, each one echoing in the quiet house. I stood there for a long time, staring at the empty space she had just vacated. I knew I should have let it go, known I should have just given her the space she asked for. But I couldn't. Something inside me told me I was running out of time. I sat down on the couch, my mind racing. The silence of the house felt deafening now, like everything was holding its breath, waiting for something to snap. It wasn't just the way she acted tonight, it was everything. The little things, the changes, the way she had been slipping away slowly, like sand through my fingers. Then, my phone buzzed, snapping me out of my thoughts. I picked it up, half expecting it to be another meaningless text or email, but it was a notification from her phone. Leah had left her phone on the counter. I hesitated for a moment, looking at the phone, feeling a wave of guilt crash over me. It wasn't like me to snoop, to invade her privacy. But tonight was different. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something, something I needed to know. I stared at the phone for a long time, the seconds ticking by slowly. "Just a glance," I told myself. "I'll just check a few things, nothing too serious." With shaky hands, I picked up her phone. My heart thudded in my chest as I unlocked Lee's phone. It felt wrong, like I was about to cross a line that could never be undone. But in that moment, I couldn't stop myself. The nagging feeling, the growing unease, it was unbearable. I needed to know what was going on, even if it meant digging into places I wasn't supposed to look. Her phone buzzed in my hand, and I froze. It was a message, just a quick glance at the lock screen, and I could see a name I didn't recognize. Mark was the name that appeared. My stomach tightened. Who was Mark? I opened the message app with trembling fingers. The conversation wasn't long, just a few exchanged texts. But it was enough to make my blood run cold. "Mark, I can't stop thinking about you. I really hope Julian doesn't find out. Leah, I'm just so confused. Everything feels different, but I don't want to hurt him. Mark, you're not going to hurt him. You deserve to be happy. Leah, I don't know anymore." I felt like the room was spinning. This wasn't just a casual conversation. I don't want to hurt him. She was talking about me. She was talking about us, but with someone else. Someone I didn't even know. The weight of the words hit me like a ton of bricks. She had been hiding something. For how long? How long had she been seeing Mark? I scrolled up through their conversation, my mind racing with questions. There were no more messages from tonight, but what I saw sent a chill down my spine. The texts were recent, just a few days ago. The way she was talking, the emotions behind her words. It was clear this wasn't just a fleeting moment. I felt betrayed, hurt, angry, but most of all, I felt like I had been living a lie. I couldn't even look at the phone anymore. It felt like the walls were closing in on me, like the weight of the truth was too much to bear. My hands were shaking, and I couldn't catch my breath. I quickly locked the phone and set it down on the counter, taking a step back. What was I supposed to do with this? Confront her? Demand the truth? I couldn't even bring myself to move. The house felt suffocating, and I knew I couldn't stay here much longer without exploding. I had to leave. I had to clear my head. But before I could grab my jacket, I heard footsteps behind me. The sound of Lee's voice cut through the tension in the room. Julian, she called softly, her voice laced with exhaustion. Are you okay? I turned to face her, but I didn't have the words. I couldn't even look at her. How could I? The woman I loved, the woman I had trusted more than anyone in my life, had been hiding this from me. And now she was standing there, asking if I was okay, when I felt like my world was crashing down around me. She took a step toward me, her eyes searching mine for something, anything. But all I saw was a stranger. I don't know what's going on with us anymore, Leah. I finally managed to say, my voice cracking. I don't know who you are anymore. Her face faltered, just for a second, but she quickly regained her composure. What do you mean? What's going on? I couldn't keep it inside any longer. Who's Mark? The words were out before I could stop them. She froze, her face turning pale. It was like I had just stabbed her, and for a brief moment, I felt a flicker of guilt. But then, the truth flooded my mind again, and that guilt faded away. I can explain, Julian, she said, her voice shaky now, a far cry from the calm detachment she'd shown earlier. But I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the explanation. I wasn't sure I could listen anymore. Explain? I repeated, barely recognizing my own voice. How do you explain this? How do you explain what I just saw? She opened her mouth to speak, but I didn't wait for her to finish. I don't know how long this has been going on, Leah. I don't know how much I missed. But what I do know is that everything's changed, and I don't think I can go on pretending it hasn't. Her eyes welled with tears, but I couldn't bring myself to comfort her. I wanted to, but every part of me was screaming at me not to. I'm sorry, Julian, she whispered, her voice breaking. I never meant for it to go this far. But it had, and I couldn't unsee what I had seen. The room was thick with tension. I could feel the space between us expanding with every word I didn't say, every second that passed without action. I stood frozen, my heart pounding in my chest. Lee's face was crumpled with guilt, but I couldn't bring myself to care. How could I, after everything? I didn't want this to happen, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I couldn't understand what she meant. She didn't want this? How could she possibly think I would believe that? It was happening. And I wasn't just standing here watching. I was part of it. I was the one who was left in the dark. Don't, I said sharply, cutting her off. Don't tell me you didn't want it to happen. It's happening. Right now. She flinched at the harshness in my tone, but I didn't care. Who is he? I demanded, forcing myself to meet her eyes. What's going on between you two? Leah closed her eyes for a moment, like she was trying to gather her thoughts or maybe even muster the strength to lie to me again. She let out a long sigh, and when she finally spoke, her voice was laced with regret. It's not like that, Julian, she said, the words slow and heavy. It's not what you think. I shook my head, the frustration bubbling up inside me. Then what is it? Because from where I'm standing, it sure looks like you've been hiding something. Something big. Leah looked away for a moment, gathering her thoughts, before she looked back at me with tears welling in her eyes. He's someone I met at work. At first, it was nothing, just a casual friendship. But then, things changed. I started to feel something for him, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to hurt you, Julian. I stared at her, my mind reeling. A casual friendship? Started to feel something for him? My chest tightened with disbelief. You felt something? I echoed, struggling to comprehend. You've been talking to him behind my back, hiding things from me, and now you're telling me this was all just feelings? I didn't plan for it to go this far, Leah continued, her voice trembling. I never wanted to hurt you. I never thought it would get so complicated. But it did. And now, I don't know how to fix it. I felt like I was suffocating. How to fix it? I repeated bitterly. How do you fix something like this? How do I even trust you again after everything? Lee's face crumpled, and she stepped forward. I'm sorry, Julian. I never wanted to hurt you. I should have been honest from the start. Honest? The word felt like a knife in my chest. She had the nerve to say that now, after everything. I don't even know who you are anymore, I said quietly, my voice hollow. I don't know what's real. The silence between us was deafening. She didn't say anything, just stood there, her body trembling. I turned away. I couldn't stand to look at her anymore. The trust had been broken beyond repair, and all I could feel was this cold emptiness inside. I had no idea what came next, no idea what I was supposed to do with the pieces of this shattered relationship. I walked to the door, grabbed my jacket, and without another word, I stepped outside. The night air hit me like a punch to the gut, but it didn't matter. I needed to leave. I needed space. As I stood in the driveway, the house behind me felt like a foreign place. My mind raced with thoughts of what had happened, what was still happening, and the future that suddenly seemed so uncertain. What now? I didn't have the answer. But I knew one thing for sure. Things would never be the same. I walked out of the house, the cold night air biting at my skin, but I didn't feel the chill. My mind was in turmoil, my thoughts racing a million miles a minute. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care. All I wanted was to get away from the house, away from the situation that was consuming me. I walked aimlessly through the neighborhood, the dim streetlights flickering overhead, casting long shadows on the empty road. The weight of the conversation I'd just had with Leah pressed down on me, suffocating me with every step I took. How had it come to this? How had we gotten here, to this point where trust was shattered, where everything we had seemed to crumble under the weight of a single truth? I wasn't sure how long I walked, but eventually, I found myself in the park, sitting on a bench by the small pond that Leah and I used to visit on summer evenings. The memories of those times felt distant now, like they belonged to someone else. I pulled my phone from my pocket and stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to call her, to confront her, to demand answers, but I knew that wasn't going to fix anything. I had seen the truth. The betrayal was out in the open now, and there was no going back. I took a deep breath and sent a simple text to Leah. I need space. There. It was done. I didn't know if I was doing the right thing, but I couldn't think clearly with her in the same house. I needed time to process, to figure out what I wanted to do next. Minutes passed, and my phone buzzed with a new message. Leah had replied, but I hesitated before reading it. Julian, please. I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. Please don't leave me. Her words stung, but I wasn't sure if they were genuine or just a desperate plea to keep me from walking away. I didn't reply immediately. The truth was, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what I wanted anymore. For the first time in a long time, I felt completely alone. And as I sat there on that bench, staring at the reflection in the water, I realized something. The hardest part wasn't knowing she had betrayed me. It was knowing that I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay and fight for us, or if it was time to let go. It wasn't just about trust anymore. It was about what was left, what we had left. And I couldn't find the answer. The night stretched on, and I found myself walking back toward the house, though I wasn't sure what I was walking toward anymore. The quiet hum of the streetlights above seemed to mock me. How had things changed so quickly? How had I let it all get so out of control? I wanted to feel angry, to feel something. But all I felt was this strange numbness that seemed to take over my body, a sensation I couldn't shake no matter how hard I tried. I reached the front door and stood there for a moment, staring at it. This was the place where we built our life. This was the house that had once felt like a home, a place filled with laughter, with shared moments, with love. But now it felt hollow. I could almost hear the echoes of what used to be, like the faint remnants of a dream slipping away. I took a deep breath and opened the door. Inside, everything was still. The quiet was unsettling. Lee's presence was in the air, thick and heavy, but she was nowhere to be found. I walked through the hallway, every step feeling heavier than the last, until I reached the living room. There, on the couch, was her phone. I hadn't expected to see it there. My heart sank. It was as if she had left it for me to find, like she wanted me to see something, to know something more. I walked toward it, hesitated, and then picked it up. There, in the notifications, was a message from Mark. I had half a mind to ignore it, but curiosity gnawed at me. I unlocked the phone with a trembling hand. The message was from just a few minutes ago, and my stomach twisted as I read it. Mark, I've been thinking about you all day. You're not still with him, are you? Leah, I'm still here, but it's over. I can't do this anymore. It's too much. Mark, I just want you. I can't stand knowing you're still with him. Leah, I don't know what to do anymore. I'm so lost, Mark. Each word felt like a dagger, each sentence a reminder of everything I had failed to see. I could feel the betrayal burning through me, each line reaffirming what I had suspected, what I had feared. But there was something else, something that stopped me in my tracks. Lee's last message had caught my eye. I'm so lost. She wasn't just telling Mark this. She was telling herself. It wasn't just about us anymore. It wasn't just about the affair. Leah was lost in herself, drowning in confusion, in guilt, in a life that was spiraling out of control. I put the phone down, my mind racing. I couldn't stay in this house tonight. Not like this. Not when everything was so up in the air. I needed time, space, to process it all. But I couldn't just leave her here. I couldn't just walk away from everything we had without at least giving her a chance to explain. Before I could second-guess myself, I texted her again. We need to talk. It was short, but it felt like the only thing I could say. The only thing I could do. I waited, pacing the room, each second dragging like hours. My phone buzzed. Leah, I'm sorry, Julian. I've been so selfish. I don't know what I want anymore. But I want to try to fix this. I read it over and over, trying to figure out what she meant, trying to find the truth in her words. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I couldn't just pick up the pieces and glue them back together. We had both been broken long before this moment, and the damage was done. I took one last look at the phone and walked out of the room, back into the cold of the night. The world outside felt so different now, as though everything had changed in the blink of an eye. I didn't know what came next. I didn't know if I should confront her, demand answers, or just walk away and never look back. But in that moment, I understood something. There was no easy way out. No simple solution. What I was about to do would shape everything that came after, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to face it. But one thing was certain. I couldn't stay in the darkness anymore. I had to make a choice. I didn't know how long I had been standing outside, my mind spinning in 1,000 directions. The cold air cut through my jacket, but I barely noticed. I was stuck in this haze, caught between the truth I had just uncovered and the life I had been living. The reality was too heavy to bear, and yet, I couldn't bring myself to walk away. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Leah. Leah, please, Julian. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know what's real anymore, but I need you to listen. I stared at the screen, my fingers hovering over the keys. What did I even want from her? What could she possibly say that would make me believe her again? I wasn't sure if I was even capable of trusting her anymore. The foundation we had built together had cracked, and I wasn't sure it could be repaired. I texted back, my response short, almost robotic. I'm not sure if I can listen anymore. I wanted to be cold. I wanted to push her away, to make her feel the same emptiness I was feeling. But deep down, I knew I wasn't ready for this to end. Not yet. I wasn't sure what I was holding on to anymore. Maybe the hope that we could fix this, or maybe just the fear of what would happen if I let go. I decided to go back inside, if only to hear her out. I needed to know where her head was, even if I couldn't trust what she said. As soon as I opened the door, I saw her. Leah was sitting on the couch, her face in her hands, her body shaking with quiet sobs. It was like I was looking at a stranger. The woman I had married wasn't sitting there anymore. This woman, this broken person, was a shell of who she had been. Julian, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I stood there for a moment, unsure of what to do. Part of me wanted to walk out, to escape this painful conversation. But the other part of me wanted to know the truth, the whole truth, even if it shattered me. I walked in slowly, sitting across from her, trying to ignore the tears that streaked down her face. Why? Was all I could manage to say. It was the only question that seemed to matter now. Leah looked up at me, her eyes wide and red. I never meant to hurt you, she said, her voice cracking. I was confused, Julian, and I kept telling myself that I wasn't doing anything wrong. But deep down I knew. I knew I was. And now I'm lost. I didn't know how to respond. Her words felt hollow, like a part of her was still holding back. but there was something about her vulnerability that kept me from walking away. You said it's over with him, I said quietly, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. She nodded, wiping her eyes. It is, but it doesn't change what I did. I can't take that back. I wanted to say more, to yell, to tell her how much she had hurt me, but I didn't. Instead, I sat in the silence, the weight of everything hanging between us. This wasn't just about an affair anymore. It was about everything else we had built, everything that had been lost along the way. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said finally, my voice steady despite the chaos inside. But I need to know if you're willing to fight for this. For us. Her eyes flickered with something. Hope, fear, regret. I wasn't sure which. But she didn't answer immediately, and in that moment, I realized something. The hardest part wasn't finding out about the affair. It was realizing that our love, whatever it had been, wasn't enough to hold us together anymore. And that was the part one didn't know how to fix. The silence in the room stretched out, heavy and thick. I could see the fear in her eyes, the same fear I was feeling. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about the wreckage that had come with it. The truth hung between us, sharp and painful, but it was also a turning point. It was the moment we could either walk away or try to rebuild from the ashes. I don't know if we can go back to what we were, I said, my voice softer now, the anger and betrayal replaced with exhaustion. But I need to know if you're willing to try. Are you willing to fight for us, Leah? She looked at me, her face pale but determined. I will fight for us, Julian. I know I've made mistakes, but I want to try. I want to fix what we've lost. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. For a long moment, we just stared at each other, neither of us sure of what the future held. But something had shifted. Something inside me that had felt so frozen and numb began to thaw. Maybe we couldn't go back to how things were, but perhaps we could find a way to move forward. It wasn't going to be easy. There would be pain and hard conversations, but it felt like the beginning of something new, not the end. I reached out, and she took my hand. The warmth of her touch was a quiet reassurance, a promise that we could still find our way, even after all the damage. We'll take it one day at a time, I said, squeezing her hand gently. I'm not saying everything is fixed, but we can start over. Together. She nodded, her tears now mixed with a small, hopeful smile. I'll be here, Julian. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a flicker of hope. It wasn't the instant healing I had wanted, but it was the first step towards something real again. Maybe this wasn't the fairy tale I'd envisioned, but it was ours to rebuild. It wasn't the end of our story. It was the beginning of a new chapter. And for the first time in a long time, I believed that maybe, just maybe, we could make it through this. Together.